Hello, Mr. Greenwood. What's going
What's
on?
up? What's up? How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Do you have basketball tonight?
Nope, I'm in Arizona right now
Oh,
for the holidays, so I'm just hanging.
change on the background, man. I can see you're spicing it up a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
So, has everybody in chat had a chance to check out the new leaderboard that I installed on Discord? I already got chastised by a few people from the company about that. So, everybody's at level 1 or 2 or 3 right now. So, the updates are coming hard and heavy, but just give it a few days and I assure you things will get a little better, or they won't, and I'll end up turning it off and I'll admit to everyone that it was a horrible idea. So we'll see what happened.
See,
I'm
can everybody hear us okay? I see we have one that cannot. Just want to make sure that everyone, it sounds good on my end.
Yeah, you sound good here. Anna, speak please.
Yes. Hello. I am here.
Cool.
All right, Anna's here. Trey, have you seen the read this last channel?
No, I have
So
not.
we have, if you scroll over to the left, there are some people asking about the origins of that. If you go over to the channel list, read this first, of course, is when people first join the server. It gives them an update and tells them what to do, all the things that they can participate in. I did read this last just to be funny for people that were leaving the server. Um, I don't know if you see, but take a look at that real quick.
I just saw that for the first time myself. Oh my
Read
god.
this last. I see. I like it.
Haha, it's a tough game. Maybe you are not suited for the amount of effort needed to participate in Discord servers like this.
So for those of you who don't spend your waking hours on WX Twitter, or X as the kids call it these days, that is an inside joke. There was a time like a few months ago where somebody posted that in response to somebody at some point, and it just sort of took on a life of its own, and everybody was posting some variation of, haha, it's a tough game. Maybe you are not suited for the amount of effort needed to participate in X, Y, or Z. Thought it'd be a fun way to um, say bon voyage to the people who have decided to leave the SEC Discord server.
I like it. I like it.
All right, folks. Well, we've got quite a few of you hanging out with us here already. So if you have questions, feel free to get those in. There is a slight change this week. Only Chaser Academy subscribers, so people with the red next to their name, are going to be able to come up on stage to speak. So if you want to ask your question in person, you want Trey to hear your voice for some reason, you sicko. I don't know why you'd want that, but if you do, then you're going to have to fork over the $0 and activate your 30-day risk-free trial for the Chaser Academy. You can find that in the channel list. It's hashtag Chaser Academy is the name of the channel. You can hook that up, and then you can ask Trey your question in person. I'm going to go ahead, Anna, and let Ariz, Aariz, come up on stage. I don't know if that was the first question, but I do know they are a Chaser Academy subscriber. So if you want to start compiling the list. Okay, perfect. I'll go ahead and let them up on the stage right now.
Hi, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, this California setup, okay? I've been looking at it too much. Every 5 seconds, I refresh the page for a new run. Nothing comes because they run only every hour. But I want to know conclusively from the guy, Trey, is it going to do something? Or is it just going to bust completely and I'm just going to waste my time spending 6 hours staying up looking at nothing and just a stratiform rain off the shore?
I mean,
That's what I want to.
That's kind of what these tend to be anyway. In my experience, they just tend to vomit rain. But I did look at the setup today. I was going to do a video, and I'm actually going to do a live stream after this is over with on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to dig into the setup a little bit more there. I actually think it looks pretty good, especially for a flash flooding threat. Severe threat always out there, depends on instability. So that's always a crapshoot, and there doesn't look like much. Looks like it's going to be mostly rain. But that convective line, it looks decent in intensity, so you might get a spin up or two along the line. As far as supercells go, probably not much. Also eyeing the Central Valley on what would it be tomorrow? Yeah, it would be tomorrow. That could see some low top stuff tomorrow there, but again, that it all hinges on instability. So overall, it looks like it's a really robust trough with some short waves, really robust short waves in it. So I suspect there'll be probably the flooding is going to take the cake here with the headlines, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a severe report or two out there. But yeah, I think it looks solid. There's a lot of dynamics going on with this system.
And if you guys want to join in on the conversation about it, we also have the Forecasting and Chasing Forum. And tomorrow, the 25th, today, those are all in the forum channels if you want to join in on the discussion there.
Holy smokes, Anna, you just upgraded.
What do you mean?
We were like chiming in with like helpful advertising and marketing stuff. More of this. Big fan.
Is that not my job?
No. I'm just like, I like the interruption. I like the interruption of the stream to like do a little marketing spot. Like we could definitely work something in down the road. Like, now we're going to throw it to Anna to tell you all about the special we have going on for Christmas Eve. And then you can just like read off the little thing. And then Trey and I can, go in the green room for like 90 seconds and strategize about the rest of the stream.
Discuss poker.
Yeah.
I do see that Seymour4198 said, if you join the Chaser Academy, Trey shows up at your door with Chase Day advice. Not yet, but we are working on that sort of concierge service. But mileage may vary if you choose to sign up for it.
Yes.
Ethan did have some great Chase Day and travel advice at the last coaching session, which is only
the group coaching session, the Grady Grumbler. I remember that. So we we won't rehash too much of that. Sanus Northeast Chaser. I see there's no other questions, so I'm just going to read it right out of the chat since I'm caught up at the moment. Sanus Northeast Chaser says, I read somewhere that once a tornado has formed, the properties of the RFD do not matter. My thought was, if the RFD inflow properties don't modulate things like the swirl ratio, ignoring things like the vortex getting detached from the meso, then what does?
I mean, unless I'm living under a rock, yes, it does matter. If the RFD starts to become too cold or too wet, then you're not going to be able to sustain that balance. So I do think the properties of the RFD do matter. Of course, it matters for tornado genesis, but obviously, once you have an RFD, there's higher chance of you getting a tornado just because of the balance. But the properties of the RFD definitely do matter, especially the thermodynamic properties. So I'm not sure where you read that. But as far as I know, I think the RFD properties do matter for the entirety of the life cycle.
Trey, I see you talking about, is that Birria Pizza?
Birria Pizza.
Okay.
Ash just posted on Facebook that she had a birria pizza, and birria is one of my favorite dishes, Mexican dishes, and to get it on a pizza is also quite great. It like she said, it's a spiritual experience. So yeah, I just wanted to see how she liked it because birria pizza is the goat.
I hadn't really put two and two together, but since you are from Arizona, that makes sense that you would have been introduced to a lot of different Mexican style dishes.
Yes, we do have some great Mexican food out here. It might be my favorite type of food, maybe just behind Thai food. I love Mexican food. I love street tacos and burritos and stuff. We have some amazing places here in Arizona, and I've been out in California as well. And unfortunately, it's tough to find really good Mexican food in the plains. It's a lot of Tex-Mex, rice and beans and enchiladas and stuff. But I have found a couple places. There's one place in Dodge City that's my absolute favorite place, east of the Rockies. It's called Tacos Jalisco. Bomb tacos, bomb carne asada. So if anyone's in the Dodge City area and you like Mexican food, authentic Mexican food, Tacos Jalisco is the place to be.
All right. I see Wyatt Marshall has requested to speak. Going to bring you up on the stage, buddy. And you said you have a question pertinent to this topic. So go for it, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabe. I just want to say happy holidays to you both. Thank you for having me
Thank
here.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, same to you.
So we're on the topic of food, of all things, at this moment. You mentioned Tacos Jalisco. I haven't been there. I've only been in Dodge City once, so I'm going to take your word for that. I didn't have a fantastic time staying in Dodge City, but I also didn't get a chance to have proper eats there. So I'm going to have to try that. I would love to hear some kind of niche spots that you've learned, Trey, in the OKC area. I
OKC area.
assuming that you've had your fill there, and as a follow up to that, to any of your suggestions that you have you ever been to a place called Hondu Mex?
I have not. Okay, that sounds good though. I have a guess of what that type of food would be, but any type of Hispanic food, I'm always down for, especially Mexican food. But yes, OKC area has some good stuff. Depends on what you like. Like I said, Mexican food is a little bit on the weak side out there. Unfortunately, they have a lot of taco trucks. And once you get into kind of South OKC, which is not the greatest part of town, but on 27th Street, 25th Street, 29th Street, their east-west streets, they have a bunch of taco places. That's kind of the Hispanic area. They have a bunch of taco places. My favorite Mexican food places in OKC, there's one called Azteca. I forget exactly where it is. It's closer to downtown. But that place is awesome. They have great carne asada, real authentic stuff there as well. There's another place that just opened in Norman a few months ago called Rosa Mezcal, right on Main Street down there in Norman. That's really solid. Thai food. There's a lot of good Thai restaurants in the OKC area. My favorite probably is Thai Thai in Norman. It's in North Norman up on Tecumseh. That's the great Thai food. They have a great lunch special there. Also, Palin Thai in Moore is awesome. That's a little bit on the east side of town. And it's a real small place, but real authentic food. So those are probably my two favorite spots. But there are a bunch of good Thai spots. Also, pho, if you like pho, Vietnamese pho, there's a lot of great places. Pho Quang is a great spot in Oklahoma City near downtown. Real super authentic place. Trying to think of other types of food.
You're living dangerously pronouncing some of those names over there, Trey.
I know. Yes, that's always the joke when you talk about Vietnamese soup. But yeah, let's see. Honduran street food. Yeah, I'm always down for that. That sounds great. Aztec is great. Trying to think. There's not a lot of great pizza, unfortunately.
I love how deep in the tank you're going on food, by the way.
I'm honestly considering starting a YouTube channel where I go to these places and show you some of the things and how good it is. Cause I've been all over the plains. I know the cool spots in a lot of these places. So I figure, why not give them these small places some publicity so people can actually go there.
Someone in the chat said Culinary Chronicles.
Oh, that's a good idea. I might have to steal that. Yeah, there's a good pizza place in OKC. Before I forget, there's a good pizza place. It's authentic New York pizza. It's in Edmond, so it's on the north side. It's called Dado's Pizza. They have two locations. One is in Harlem, New York, and one is in OKC. I don't know why that's the case, but I'm very glad that there's some authentic New York pizza in the city somewhere, because New York pizza is the best pizza. I just went to New York, and that settled it for me. So, but yeah, there's a lot of good places. OKC has a really good food scene. There's a lot of good places near downtown too. So, yeah, there's a ton of good places. I could go on and on, but yeah.
All right. Square Cut Ohio Pizza, Buckeye Frank. Yes. Although I will say, if you're talking about Columbus, Ohio in particular, it's got to be Hound Dogs. If you've ever been to Columbus, Ohio, and you want to have the best pizza in the state, in my opinion, but definitely in Columbus, it's got to be Hound Dogs Pizza. But make sure you get the Smokin' Joe's crust. If you get the regular square cut, they don't use the special sauce and they don't use the garlic butter crust. So that'll be my contribution to the food discussion. Hound Dog's Pizza with Smokin' Joe's sauce if you decide to actually go to Columbus, Ohio for any reason at all.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, I'm looking at my list here. I got a whole list. You can see that on my phone of all my spots.
Oh my god.
We make a map. There's a ton of them on here. So yeah,
That
I
is
know.
awesome.
We're
I think
gonna
that's a
have to
great
make,
idea,
like,
honestly, because the two go hand in hand, right? Like if you're a storm chaser and you're stranded in who knows where Kansas in the middle of the night, you want to know where to get a good meal either later that evening or the next day before you head out. And if you had a channel to look at and see exactly where the good spots were in that area, I think that would do great with storm chasers. Very good compliment to the Convective Chronicles channel.
Yeah, and for when we're on tour, we try to eat at these family-run places instead of the big chains, just so we can experience some of the local food and whatnot. And more often than not, we've been very pleased with those decisions. And of course, we're happy to support local businesses rather than the big chains if we can. So, yeah, I've got a ton of places all over the plains here in Phoenix as well. Since I'm from here, I know some good spots. But yeah, I love to eat. People say that they eat to live. I live to eat. So.
Well, you know, if you're going to have a hobby, it's a good idea to have one that you can do every single day.
Yes, exactly.
Food, poker, and memes. There we
Yes.
go.
Yeah.
By the way, we have had a lot of people. So I try to keep the chat channels, informational channels on Discord. I'm fine expanding those out. You folks will see from time to time me adding some of that stuff just so we have more content, more information available for everybody. But I try to keep the chat channels to a minimum just because if you spread out the discussion too wide, then a lot of times it just starts to feel like it's a little a little I don't even know the word. It's not very populated, I guess would be a good way to say it. But I will say we have had a lot of people ask for a food channel in particular. So I might open up a food channel that I'm not sure if I should open it up for people to have full discussions or if it should just be people posting pictures in the name of the food or the restaurant. Which one would be like easier to look through? So if you guys want to drop in chat what you think would be a good idea, since all of you apparently are big fans of Trey talking about food, and I will take your suggestions to heart and we will open up a food channel here while Trey is answering the next question. So
I think
heading
a
over
lot
to
of
the
people
questions.
want food discussions.
Yeah, I'm thinking that might be the case as well. So we'll see what everybody says in chat. And in the meantime, we do have a question from somebody whose name is their name Tornadoes Zero
Frowny
with a
face.
sad
You have to
face.
add the frowny face, yes.
They want to know, Trey, will 3 Cape be the biggest limiting factor in the California setup tomorrow?
Yeah, there doesn't look like much. It looks in these events, it's very hard to get instability because there's usually just a ton of rain, so it's very difficult. But for the Central Valley stuff tomorrow afternoon, then if it does clear out nicely and you get some sunshine, then it'll be those Cape profiles where it's all in the lowest few kilometers of the profile, and so you'll have pretty decent 3 Cape there. But that's conditional at this point. But yeah, instability overall is going to be the main limiting factor for severe, at least for this setup.
All right, so the people are speaking. It's so crazy, Trey, because this is a storm chasing server, and we're getting more discussion from people who are more passionate about this topic, food, than we ever have with anything related to weather. That's just crazy.
I mean, I get it. You can't like you said, you can't storm chase every day, but you can find cool places to eat every day, and you can eat cool stuff every day. So I get it.
It's always important to find a really good spot to sit down after a chase.
Yes,
have a beer and
100%. 100%.
Absolutely. I'm going to invite Kazaki up here on the stage. Kazaki, Chaser Academy subscriber, so he gets priority access. What's going on, man?
Hey, so first off, just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. And second, going in line with a lot of the questions that's been asked about the flooding events, projected flooding in California tomorrow. I'm not very familiar with forecasting events like this. What are some of the, I guess, base ingredients, stuff like that that you're looking for these higher end flooding events when forecasting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you need a lot of moisture. Obviously, you need a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. You can look at that a number of ways. It can be precipitable water. I like to use, especially for these West Coast events, these atmospheric river type events, a variable called integrated vapor transport, or IVT. It basically combines the total volume of moisture there is in the atmosphere with the wind profile, so it shows you how that moisture is moving through the atmosphere, which is nice. So I like to use that a lot. But really, you need the atmosphere to be moist, and you need there to be a persistent source of forcing. So you have persistent uplift over a given area over a longer duration. So in this case, that's going to be the trough out to the west over the Pacific right now. It's going to have a bunch of short waves rotating through it. So you're going to have just a persistent forcing in the exit region of those short waves and in the broader trough in general. So that's going to lead to multiple rounds of storms. And obviously, topography plays a huge role in this as well. In this event in particular, you have the coastal range, the transverse ranges along the coast there. So you'll have orographic lift there. And one thing to note, if you do have a topographical feature of note influencing your event, if you have your moisture advection vector, if you will, so your integrated vapor transport vector, if it's perpendicular to your forcing, your topographical feature, then you're going to have maximized uplift on that feature. So that can lead to enhanced rainfall totals in those events. And then, of course, from a pure flash flooding perspective, looking for things like old burn scars. Is it an urban area versus a rural area? Urban areas tend to be more inundated by flooding because, of course, concrete and stuff can't absorb the water like agricultural fields and grass can. So stuff like that. Also, it depends. This depends on the setup, of course, but slow moving training storms. If your winds aloft are very weak, so in a monsoonal type setup, you can get flash flooding almost on a daily basis just from single storms because your winds aloft are so weak. The storms are not really moving, so they tend to just dump rain on a certain location over an extended period of time before they fizzle out. So that can lead to some stuff. So it depends on the setup, but you want a moist atmosphere and you want there to be a persistent forcing mechanism, so that you have multiple rounds of storms or lots of storms going over the same areas over a long duration. So
The food channel is now officially open, by the way. So, Trey, you forced my hand this evening.
solid. I like it. Food. I like it.
Greenie WX asks, "Hey Trey, what are your minimum requirements for supercells in tornadoes? This includes mini supercells." So let's go ahead and just say what are your minimum requirements for something to be considered a mini supercell, since I know depending on the location, the time of year, lots of other factors, your minimum requirements might change. So specifically for mini supercells, what are you looking for?
It just depends. You need a little bit of instability. You can have maybe 100 joules per kilogram. You just need a little bit. You need just enough to support decently robust updrafts, and you need deep layer shear. So if you have 30 knots of shear, that's usually enough. But that can be it can depend on the location you're in. If you have topographical influences or whatnot, but usually you just need a little bit of cape, um, preferably packed in the lowest levels of the atmosphere. You can have 100 joules per kilogram of cape, but if it's packed in the lowest 1 to 2 kilometers, that's pretty good, rather than spread out over a larger depth. So just a little bit of cape and maybe 30 knots of shear, deep layer shear. That tends to be enough, but like I said, it's situation dependent.
All right, next up, Tornado Zero with the sad face. I can't get over that username. That's one of the best usernames I've ever seen. It's just tornadoes:0 with a sad face. They want to know, Trey, do you have any opinions on the model disagreements about the Pacific Northwest windstorm on Christmas Eve? NAM and GFS are showing a record-breaking windstorm, but the Euro is just showing a normal winter low. Great question, by the way. For someone who has no tornadoes, you have lots of good questions, so perhaps that's the trade-off.
I hope the username is going to change as the tornado count changes. That would be nice to see. And hopefully the number goes up. But I haven't really focused too much on the Pacific Northwest side of things, mostly focused on the California flooding things. But from what I've seen, it's a really potent low-level cyclone. You're actually right now we should be getting pretty intense cyclogenesis out there over the Pacific, and it just kind of moves up the coast. And some of the models were spitting out like 70, 80, 90 knot winds at 850, which I mean for out here is pretty insane. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, just based on the strength of a low-level cyclone if it comes to fruition. I looked at the GFS and the NAM too, and they were all on board. They were both on board with that solution. So I wouldn't be surprised if it comes to fruition.
All right. Next question is coming in from Wyatt Marshall. You might have already heard his name, folks, and you're wondering why he's skipping ahead of you in the line. That's because Wyatt is smart. Wyatt is a Chaser Academy subscriber. You could be too if you click into the Chaser Academy channel on the left-hand side and start your 30-day free trial. So my wish this Christmas is that Chaser Academy subscribers would flood the zone in this office hours right now so that all of the regular members with green in their name don't get to ask a single question the rest of my time. That's what I'm hoping for this Christmas. So Wyatt, without further ado, buddy, let's get you up on the stage and ask Trey your question.
All right. Yep. Like you said, get Chaser Academy, folks. It's worth it. Even if you're already, if you think of yourself as a well-seasoned chaser, just get it. It's incredibly worth it. I've been chasing for almost 5 years now. It is still fantastic. All of the modules available. But to get to brass tacks, Trey, I just want to hear your general thoughts. I'm not huge into climatology, and I know you're more of a 3 to 5 day range at most, but I'd love to hear your general thoughts on, and I'm sure others would like to as well, is why we've had such a quiet second season. Now I know the Matt and Julian oscillation, the MJO for short, has stalled a lot of past, I don't know, 2.5 months. We just haven't really gone anywhere with that. But I'd love to hear anything else in regards to climatology or the overall oscillations that have led to such a quiet season.
That's a good question. I'll be honest, I haven't really looked much. I was, back in whenever, September, October, it was plausible that we were going to have a decent second season because we were going into La Nina, which usually is a good thing. Gulf is warm, which is a good thing, especially for cool season type stuff. When you're kind of relying a little bit more on that instability to get farther north. So with a warm Gulf, that's going to be easier to do. But it obviously has not played out that way at all. And I would be lying if I tried to come up with reasons why. I haven't really looked. I'm sure there's some folks on social media like Eric Webb who have talked about that stuff. But yeah, I have not looked too deeply into that. I've just barely been looking at some real early stuff with next season. I'll say I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing so far. But we'll see. Just a couple more months and I'll be on the 2026 tornado season forecast, which I'm interested to see what that looks like. If we can have 4 active years in a row, that would be pretty unprecedented. So yeah, but as far as the second season goes, I am not 100% sure yet. We've just, especially right now, that ridge has been pretty persistent. And so we're not going to see much at all for a while. Maybe a pattern shift as we start the new year or get close to the new year. But it's pretty early for that right now. So I don't know. I would be lying if I tried to come up with an answer with the alphabet soup, as I like to call it, of teleconnections. But yeah, it'd be interesting to look into why that's the case.
Seymour 4198 Chaser Academy subscriber. What are some good places for historical and or past events for forecasting practice? Is there anything with modeling data? Also, cough cough, would love those forecasting challenges back again. So I'll handle the last part of that question, Trey, before I toss it over to you for the forecasting practice. We have like 10 forecasting challenges that Trey had created that we're sitting on right now. Some of them you might have seen before, but just based off of the number of people that were interacting with the ones that we put out there, I'm guessing most of you have not. And we're definitely down for number one, releasing those and putting out some more of those, not just from Trey, but also from some of our other coaches in the future. The problem that we're running into is trying to find a format that actually works for number one, getting them in front of people so that they actually see that they exist. Number two, making it so that people don't get the experience spoiled by people leaving all of their forecasts in the chat, and then somebody comes and they want to watch or look at the upper air charts, and then they go into the chat to type their answer, and then all of a sudden they see everybody else's information, and then it kind of spoils it for them because they are already being influenced by other people. So if anybody has any suggestions, and we'll continue to think about some things as well, but we would love to use those at some point, because content that's just sitting there, and obviously everybody here knows that everything Trey makes is pretty much freaking gold. So it's obviously awesome stuff that we want to get out to all of you guys at some point. But yeah, we'd love some suggestions on how we might utilize that content moving forward. And we absolutely are aware, and we want to make sure that we bring those back at some point. So Trey, now that we've discussed that, what do you think about forecasting practice? Where would you send somebody if they were looking to cut their teeth and improve their skills?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Just because we don't really have anything that blocks out the date. It would be nice if we had a program that where it could feed in SPC mesoanalysis data or from some radar data from a certain source or satellite data, and it would block out the date for you. So maybe that's something we can do in the future. I know Tim Marshall compiled a few, I believe it was his storm chasing manual or storm chasing workbook, something. I saw it on what's the storm chasing blog site? I forget, whatever that's called. But he had it on there once, and I downloaded it, and I can't find the file anymore. That had a bunch of cases, the data from all the cases. It was written way back in the 80s or 90s, so it was all kind of poor quality. But the premise was the same, where you would just kind of go through, look at the observed data only, and try to make a chase target. I would just say go back to the SPC, Severe Thunderstorm Event Archive, and just try to run through, pick random cases, like just pick a random date, maybe go to that case. Maybe try to pick a date that you don't know what happened. Obviously, what sucks with that is the storm reports for the day pop up when you open an event. So maybe just try not to look at the event storm reports first, and just try to go straight to the mesoanalysis data and all that stuff, because it has most of them have the mesoanalysis data, the upper air charts, soundings, etc. So you can kind of do the process. So I would just do that. Just go to random dates on the SPC mesoanalysis archive and go from there. As far as modeling data goes, there's not really a good archive for that. The href goes back to, I think, like 2017 or 2018 or something, like 2019 maybe. So you could look at that for model data, but otherwise it's very difficult to find like NAM archive data, for example. So I would start there, the SPC archive and severe weather events archive, and go from there. That would be my probably be the best thing I could think of.
All right. Buckeye Frank wants to know, Trey, what are your thoughts on the late December trough?
I have not really looked that far ahead. I looked very briefly at a GFS run a couple days ago, just looking out in time, and I did see what looks to be at least a little bit of a pattern change. So that's good, because it's pretty not abnormal, but definitely it's a lot warmer than it should be this time of year across the southern tier of states. So, and it's been pretty boring this second season. So I've heard some other people mention a possible pattern change come right around the New Year's time frame or so, but I have not looked that far ahead. So we'll see. Once we get past Christmas, I'll start taking a look at things, and we'll see if they can if anything pops up on my radar.
Jack in a Booth, Jackson Watkins, OG. Does precipitable water affect whether or not a tornado is rain wrapped or not?
That is a component. Mostly it's the wind profile as far as venting goes, but if you do have a very moist environment, that just means there's more moisture that can be precipitated out. So generally, if you do have a very moist environment, you can tend to get those more saturated type soundings that are akin to more of a tropical type environment instead of a really unstable, typical severe weather environment. And that can usually mean more high precipitation storms. General rule of thumb is above about 1.7 inches is kind of the threshold for HP supercells. We talked about that in the navigation module when we did the episode on supercell types. But yes, that is a factor, although it is more so the wind profile.
Greeny asks another question. I would like to follow up on seeing if Broyles would be able to come in for the office hours show. Have you asked him? And if so, what did he say? No rush, by the way.
I have not asked him. He did a lot for me for the June 20th video, so I didn't want to bug him right away. So I'm probably going to wait a little bit. Maybe as we go toward February or something. He definitely mentioned collaborating again on some other stuff, videos for the channel, as far as his new Tornado Genesis work that he's working on. So maybe I'll ask him then. I told him I'd reach out at some point in the new year. So once that happens, I'll ask him. But I wanted to not hound him after he did a lot for me for the June 20th stuff. So, but I will ask him eventually, and I do think he would be happy to come on.
Yeah, I do think Broyles' office hours would break the internet. So if
Yes.
that ever happened, it would be awesome. But obviously,
Yes.
for the same reasons you haven't asked him yet, I haven't asked you to ask him. And, we'll see how things go. I do have one really cool thing that I can make as an announcement here. It is official at this point. John Bangoff, who is an NWS forecaster. Trey, it's Penn State, correct? The Penn State Forecast Office?
Yeah, State
I
College.
think so. State College, yeah. I always get those two confused, but yeah, the State College Forecast Office, also the marketing / public face of the Weatherfront app. He's actually joining Storm Chaser Coaching. He's going to be doing some office hour stuff. He's also going to be doing some forecast shows with us. And if you look in the channel list on the left-hand side of your screen there, you'll see there's actually a Weatherfront category where you can download Weatherfront, get a 7-day free trial. And also there is a Weatherfront support channel. That is, I believe after talking to John, I don't want to misquote him, but I think the only place where you can get like live support from Weatherfront. Of course, you can hit them up on Twitter and they always respond, or you can email them and they always respond. But if you want to actually chat with them and talk with them, you can come into the Weatherfront support channel, ask them about the different features. If you do, God forbid, have any issues with the app or whatever, you can talk about them in there as well. So we're going to be working with Weatherfront moving forward. We think the app is incredible. And before the chat gets flooded with this question, which is something that is a broken record at this point, the Weatherfront app will likely, I don't want to pin them down to anything, be coming out with an Android version in 2026. So for all of you who are wondering when Android's going to happen, I have the same information that you likely have, which is that sometime in 2026 that will be available. And I know a lot of you are very interested in that happening because
God,
Android's
finally.
probably I was going to say Android's at least like 30-40% of people that have mobile devices, and it's unfortunate that all of you chose incorrectly back when you first started purchasing a mobile plan and a device to go with it, but it just means you got to wait a little bit longer to atone for your sins. All right, Sanus Northeast Chaser. If you are looking for landspouts along a boundary, wouldn't you also end up having both a cyclonic and anticyclonic updraft, since the horizontal vorticity off the boundary is basically crosswise?
It's an interesting thought. So it actually, no, the updraft is, this is kind of weird, but the updraft is independent of the vorticity along the boundary. So it can be rotating one way. It doesn't matter. You just need an updraft over the vorticity along the boundary. And the thing to differentiate here is this is vertical vorticity, not horizontal vorticity. This is vertical vorticity. So, an eddy that's oriented in the vertical, all you need is some type of updraft to go up over that, and it can make the connection. So the vorticity is not necessarily crosswise or streamwise because it's oriented vertically. It's vertical vorticity. And so it doesn't necessarily, the vorticity along the boundary that this updraft ingests doesn't really go toward the dynamics of the updraft itself, if that makes sense. It acts like a vacuum cleaner. The updraft is just there to act like a vacuum cleaner to suck that vorticity up from the boundary into the vertical and make that connection, if that makes sense.
I never really thought of that before, but that's actually really interesting.
Yeah,
I
that is
would've
an
thought that
interesting
I
thought.
yeah, I would have thought the two were connected. Just but
So
yeah.
obviously they are connected. For a landspout, it has to be connected. The vorticity is connected to the updraft. That's the definition of a landspout, but it's not really impacting the dynamics of the actual updraft per se. Because you're not dealing with a mesocyclone above it. All that supercell dynamic stuff that we've talked about, the Klemp 1987 paper where you have anticyclonic and cyclonically rotating updrafts based on the shear, and they split, and then the right mover becomes dominant. That's all assuming you have a mesocyclone. And this is a landspout. It's a non-mesocyclonic tornado. So there's no mesocyclone above it, basically. So you're not really the vorticity that you're ingesting, the storm's ingesting, is not really impacting the dynamics of the storm itself. The updraft is just acting as a vacuum cleaner to suck that vorticity up. And the vortex itself is very shallow within the cloud base, right? It's not extending up the entire depth of the storm like a tornadic or mesocyclonic tornadic vortex would be.
Right on. Very good. Very good. Tornadoes equals 0. Trey, do you have any thoughts on the 1953? This is just going to annoy me. Flint. I know I'm supposed to pronounce it Worcester. The 1953 Flint Worcester outbreak. It's Worcester, and I'm going to say it like it's actually spelled. I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm sorry, Melissa, our COO, who happens to also be my girlfriend, who's from Boston. Do you have any thoughts on the 1953 Flint Worcester outbreak and a video eventually planned on it, given it being one of the most significant outbreaks in American history? I'm interested on how such violent long-track tornadoes can affect Massachusetts and what caused the high visibility of the tornadoes in that outbreak. So a lot of stuff there. Great question. Tornadoes equal 0.
Yeah, I have not really looked too much into that outbreak. That would be one to ask Howie Bluestein about. I believe that was one of his earliest memories about getting into severe weather. He wrote about it in one of his books. But yeah, I haven't specifically looked at that setup. But yeah, that's all. I do plan on eventually going through all those historic cases. The only problem is the data collection is not as good as it is for recent cases. You're not going to have good satellite data. You're not going to have radar data that's really good. So it's just tough to make a full elongated breakdown like I usually do for the newer stuff with those old cases. But you have the Violent Tornado webpage, which I rely on heavily. So yeah, I'll add it to the list, but I have not looked at that case much yet. A lot of people think that I probably look at past cases all the time in my free time, but I'll be honest, I don't. When I'm not doing weather stuff, I don't really do anything weather-wise. I don't watch a lot of tornado videos on YouTube, believe it or not. I just don't enjoy watching a lot of tornado videos on YouTube because it just pisses me off that I wasn't there, basically.
That reminds me over the summer, Trey, when you missed out on that string of really impressive events one after another. I remember talking to you, and
Yeah.
that was about the only time I've ever talked to you, and you were legit angry that you had missed out on all those tornadoes. So
Yeah, I get angry when it's factors that I can control, and I couldn't really control it because it was just the way the tour schedule fell. But the June 20th day was in our control. So that kind of pisses me off. But more so, a busted forecast doesn't make me mad as much as something like laziness, just not chasing because I just don't want to chase, even though it looks decent. That's the stuff that makes me mad.
Yep.
So, but then after a chase, I'm always hard on myself. I'm a perfectionist, so I nitpick I go back and will nitpick stuff like, oh, I should have done this. I should have taken this road. Should have done this maneuver and whatnot, and to get this view. And that it does become toxic at times. So I just kind of, once an event's done with, I kind of just shut it out, and then I'll revisit it later for a breakdown or whatnot. But I don't like to dwell on stuff or dive deep into cases right away. I usually like to give them some time, and then I'll go back if I do a breakdown on it. But a lot of stuff I just won't even go back and revisit a lot of the time.
That's a really solid piece of advice, not just for storm chasing, but life more broadly, just to delve into the psychological for a second, because you hear us talking a lot, you, me, all the other coaches, about how, studying and putting the work in and putting the effort in. But sometimes you do just have to take a step back. You have to get done with the chase, and you have to not dive into it to see every little thing that you could have done differently and pick yourself apart. You just have to, for you, go to the casino or go play some basketball or go to get some Mexican food at your favorite place down the street and just take some time off and get away from it. It's a good reminder to balance, honest analysis and review versus just hypercritically picking yourself apart so that you feel defeated and also are in an emotionally charged state so that you're not making good decisions the next time there's a setup that you have to focus your attention on.
Right. Yeah. That's something I always struggle with. I've always been very competitive. So when I see different shots on the internet of a tornado that I saw or a storm that I saw, I always kind of get like, damn, I should have done that. And that gets really toxic. So after a chase, I have really tried hard in the last few years to just chase, not focus on outside noise during the chase, and then after the chase, I'll just try to enjoy what I got. And obviously, I'll go back and look at things that I could have done better from a targeting perspective or a chasing navigation perspective, because it's always good to do that. But I don't like to dwell on things a long time. Mistakes happen. You're rarely going to get the best shot that's out there or available for a certain storm or tornado. But I've tried in the past few years to just not stress about that and just enjoy what I got. Put the phone down for a while and just enjoy being in front of a cool storm and a cool tornado with good people. So, yeah, it's good advice for everybody out there. Just don't stress on the small stuff. Just enjoy being out there. Just chase for the love of extreme weather and the beauty of the storms, and you'll be in a much better headspace.
Very well said. Same this Northeast Chaser with another question. Is horizontal vorticity or vertical vorticity from enhanced vorticity along the boundary a valid way to help with tornado genesis, or is it just something that drives deviant motion and modified storm relative winds?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, vorticity along a boundary is going to be a great way to help with tornado genesis. Vertical vorticity ingestion can allow a supercell to rotate like a cold core case relies heavily on vertical vorticity ingestion along a boundary. But so can horizontal vorticity. Those are kind of your horizontal convective rolls. That would be horizontal vorticity because it's oriented horizontally. Of course, whether those are streamwise or crosswise, that makes a big difference in tornado genesis in a lot of cases. So no, the vorticity in any form along a boundary is usually going to be a good thing for going toward tornado genesis.
All right. Wyatt, you were just saved by Anna because I thought I had just forgot to delete your last hand raised opportunity. And she chimed in and was like, no, Wyatt raised his hand. So you can thank Anna for this, bringing you back up on the stage. How's it going, Wyatt?
Well, thank you, Anna. It's diabolical, Gabe.
No problem.
Trey, just hearing you talk about your overall perspective about post chase and then just kind of being there in the moment. I'd love to pick your brain about your approach to tour days and how your own perspective factors in to, all right, I'm going to get us on the, I guess, the best storm for our clients to enjoy, and then what that becomes. You said you much prefer to be kind of just there in the moment with cool people and a cool storm. So yeah, just general your approach to getting on said storm, and then what it's like there then in the moment, even if it doesn't produce a tornado. You're interacting with your clients and what that's like, and then if it doesn't pan out, even still, what is that like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, it starts with the external factors. So, do we start in OKC? Is it the first day of the tour we're starting in OKC? That kind of puts stuff like South Dakota target that's out of reach for us on like the first day of a tour, or if it's the last day of a tour and we have to be back in OKC, we have to kind of plan our chase around that. Just stuff like that is where we kind of have to start at first. But the way I look at it is basically we're just chasing the way we would normally chase, and there's just a bunch of people in the back who are intrigued about whether our friends in the back. And I just treat it as I'm chasing out there with my chase partner, and we just have people in the back that we need to keep them abreast of what's going on all the time. So our goal, the company I work for is called Extreme Tornado Tours. It's not called Extreme Structure Tours. It's not called Extreme Rainfall Tours. It's Extreme Tornado Tours. So we're out there to see tornadoes, and these people are as well. So I'm gonna target to give us the best chance of seeing tornadoes in most cases. Obviously, if it's the greatest tornado threats in the Midwest and it's a big squall line that has a 10% risk for spin ups along the line, and there's a chance of maybe a structured isolated supercell in Kansas, but it's very, very low tornado risk, we're going to probably choose the latter option than chasing the squall line, even though that's the greater tornado threat, because we want to just, if in the case of there's no tornado risk, or if there's just it's going to be real sloppy, we want to get them the best chance of seeing the coolest stuff possible. But in most cases, we're going to see we want to see tornadoes, and that's our main goal. So for example, last year the Greenfield, Iowa day, the moderate risk. So we were choosing between going to Colorado for the hail threat the night before. That was, I think it might have had a 5% risk with it, or chasing in the moderate risk in Iowa. And we talked about it amongst ourselves. We thought, well, the tornado risk in Iowa is looking pretty good. It might be a little bit on the messy side, but the highest ceiling play is going to be the Iowa play. So we bypassed Colorado to go to set ourselves up for Iowa on the 21st. And it paid off significantly. And I know some other folks, unfortunately, who did the opposite or tried to do both, and they missed out on the tornado, the Greenfield stuff. So we're always trying to give ourselves the best chance of seeing tornadoes. As far as when it doesn't work out, that's always the toughest thing. When it doesn't work out and there's a target that produces tornadoes elsewhere, that's the toughest part. Like June 20th was extremely difficult because the what's tough is our guests are well connected. They know who Reed Timmer is. They're going to watch Reed Timmer's stuff. And they're in the van looking at social media, looking at their feeds, and they see all these tornado images come in. That's the toughest part, is when you mess up on the target and something goes wrong. That happens. Like the Andover day in 2022 was like that. We targeted up north, didn't make it back south, and then those images started coming in from Andover. Most of the time, our guests are really cool, and they understand that we're human and that we're not going to be able to bat 1,000. It's just not possible. We're going to make mistakes. But they realize that for the most part. And after the June 20th day, I just said, we take responsibility for it. It's on us. We're going to do our best to make it up for you for the rest of the tour. And luckily that tour, we got a tornado in Minnesota a couple days later, which eased the sting of that day. So it's tough, but my mindset is like chasing any other day. I want the best chance of seeing tornadoes. And if there's no tornado risk, we want to see the coolest stuff possible. So that's kind of how I approach it. And we have great guests. Like I said, they're on board to drive great distances to see cool stuff. Like we went from Denver, Colorado to Wisconsin and back in 1 day or 2 days on a tour in 2022, the Toma, Wisconsin day. For those of you who are familiar, and they were loving it because we saw a great tornado. It was a grind. We had to get back to Denver to drop them off the next day, but they were super happy because they saw tornadoes, and that's what they're out here to see, most of them. So that's how I approach it, and it sucks to miss stuff with them, and we kind of have to plan with the external stuff. Like it's a tour company, we have a group, we got to take bathroom breaks, we got to make sure they're well fed and whatnot. It's not like you're chasing on your own, and you can just blast to a target without stopping. You got to keep that in mind. So there are some external factors, but I'm going at it like I'm chasing on my own and just trying to see the best stuff possible.
All right. Have three other questions here, Trey, that we'll hit, and then we'll bounce on out of here. Brandon WX0087, Chaser Academy subscriber. Thank you for that, Brandon. Hello and Merry Christmas to everyone. Merry Christmas to you as well, Brandon. Trey, any way we could get a breakdown on the June 22nd, 2024 Wisconsin tornadoes? I'm from the area, and I find the evolution of that supercell that caused the Janesville, Wisconsin tornado fascinating, enjoying the membership and all of the content. Again, thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you.
Yeah, that is an interesting day. I remember that day. That actually hit my friend's neighborhood. He's a storm chaser as well, and he had just moved there to Janesville, and it literally hit his neighborhood, and they had some damage to their house. So yeah, that was an interesting day for me, and just watching that was pretty cool. As far as a full breakdown, I'll be honest, probably not. Is my mindset with the breakdowns are I try to pick the days that are more well known, at least within the chasing community, or of course ones that are widely known outside of that, like the Greenfield, Iowa day, or June 20th, first EF5 in 12 years or whatever it was, 13 years, whatever it was. But the smaller cases are tough, and I hate to be driven by viewership. But those smaller cases within a given year just don't get the traction that the other ones do. So it's a lot of work for not as much of I hate to use the word payoff, but there's just not as much traction on those. So I try to pick, like I could pick 50 different days from this year to do, but I just have to be more selective. Just based on.
I got to cut you off real quick. I knew the fog video numbers were going to get to your head sooner rather than later, and here we are. So Mr. Trey, the celebrity now. All right.
Yeah. I wish I could do every day. I really do, but honestly, making these videos, it's a lot of work, and I don't want to say it gets old, but it's very much the same process for all of them. So it can drag on a little bit. So I have to be selective with those cases. So I don't know if I will do a full breakdown on that. I do have some insight. I think it was very much a storm interaction type day. Just looking at the radar, there was a lot of stuff on the southwestern and western flank of that storm. A lot of that, and I would be interested to see the photograph from that day. There was probably some fairly large storm relative inflow, fairly large low-level photographs, so you needed a lot of that. So that's what it looks like to me, just from a storm scale perspective. But yeah, that's kind of my approach to the breakdowns and whatnot. I know the fog video did well. That's probably why I'm doing this live stream after on the California stuff, because normally I probably wouldn't even bother. I know. But I mean, why not? If the fog video videos can go big.
Yeah, you got to pay the bills. So yeah. It's all about finding the niche market that is really going to be appreciating that content. And I will say this, just anecdotally speaking, so I'm not talking shit about anyone else's content, but I will say this, out of all the mainstream content, and I'm including YouTubers in that term, mainstream content that's out there that people are flocking to YouTube to find out information about. So let's say you live in California and you're about to experience a crazy event, or you just had a crazy fog event, and now you're going to YouTube and you're searching for videos that are talking about what's happening. they're not going to find a better explanation or a deeper dive into those types of events than your content. Without even having watched the California stuff, I already know for certain that if I take like popular YouTuber A and Trey's video, I'm not saying one's going to be better than the other, but they're going to find more information and better meteorology in your stuff than they do just about anywhere else. So as far as serving a niche market is concerned, I think that's where it's at. And for those of you who are wondering what the hell we're talking about, if you go to Convective Chronicles, of course, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that's Trey's primary YouTube channel, his primary project. His video on the fog events out in California that happened over the last month or so, it has been blowing up. Trey, is it still the number one? Well, obviously, it's still the number one video of all time on your channel.
Yep.
And so I would highly recommend all of you to go check that out. And I'll end with this. Kazaki said you could say it's fogging his brain. So very well played,
Nice.
Kazaki.
Nice. I like
Indeed. Indeed, it is fogging his brain. Two more questions, Trey. Jack in a booth, Jackson Watkins, asks, what does Trey do in his free time?
I'm a pretty simple guy. I play basketball most nights. When I'm back in Oklahoma, I go to the gym and play pickup basketball. I play golf, and I collect vinyl records. So I'll go to the record store sometimes, or I'll take trips to different cities and look for vinyl records. My collection is blossoming. I just started this past January collecting, and now I've got almost 350 albums in my collection. So I might be a little bit addicted, but that I do that in my free time. That's pretty much it. That keeps me happy. I don't play video games or anything. I'm pretty simple. I just like playing basketball, playing golf. I like staying active. I don't necessarily work out. I hate lifting weights and stuff like that and running on a treadmill, but I love playing basketball. That kind of gets my competitive juices flowing too, which helps.
I have a very strange request in the chat that I am not going to read out loud, but won't be that hard to find if you want to scroll through. Okay. Last question of the night comes in from Luke. I like that. After all the crazy usernames we've had, nice and simple, like you, Trey, very simple man, just Luke, nothing else, right. Nothing extra. I have a question. With outbreaks like 315 of this year, how would an environment that over-convects still produce a high-risk level tornado outbreak? Like, what would need to go right with the over-convection?
It's kind of a catch-22, because if you have a ton of convection, it kind of lessens your chances of semi-discrete supercells, which is what you need for a big-time outbreak. But like we saw on 315, the supercells down to the south, the Tylertown supercell, and down there, that was fairly discrete, and it stayed discrete for quite a while the rest of the area kind of just vomited convection. The Bassfield day was kind of another one. It was a mess. You had a lot of QLCS stuff. That was a huge outbreak just from a quantity perspective. But it was a mess, except for that area. You had just one supercell going nuts, and that can be it. You can just need one supercell to go nuts, and then boom. So it just depends. But yeah, if you over-convect, chances are you're not going to see the outbreak that you thought you might see. So that's kind of a catch-22 situation.
All right, that brings this week's office hours to a close. Reminder, we have more sessions like this, either one or two more, and those are 90-minute sessions every single week. So I think the next one coming up is Aaron J. Jack on Saturday the 27th, where we are going to talk about storm chasing in Canada. And you can access that absolutely free by going to the Chaser-Academy channel in the channels list. It's towards the top of the channels list on the left-hand side, starting your 30-day risk-free trial. And if you like the Chaser Academy, stick around. If you don't, you can peace out. That's what a 30-day risk trial is for. So there's really no excuse for all of you not showing up and hanging out with us and talking about storm chasing in Canada. I know that I can't wait personally to ask Aaron about those big-ass warning boxes that they put in Canada and why it's like that. I'm sure a lot of people have seen those on Twitter before. and you can have the tiniest little supercell like up in the north corner of the warning area, and there'll be warning places like 300 miles to the south still. So definitely the Wild West as far as storm chasing is concerned.
Yeah, that should be an interesting session. There's not much out there on chasing Canada specifically. I've always wanted to get up to Canada to chase. My boss for the tours, he goes up to Canada every summer, and he says it's pretty awesome up there. You got sunlight for well past almost toward midnight, which is cool. So I'd like to get up there one day and chase up there. They get some really cool stuff.
All right, folks. You all have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us here tonight, Trey and Anna. Thank you for being the toppest goober in the entire world.
You are welcome.
Thanks, y'all. Merry Christmas.
Yep. Merry Christmas.
I'll probably see you guys in the VC later.